Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Essential Pause, a podcast about slowing down, noticing, and finding presence in the middle of our busy and often uncomfortable lives. I'm Dr. Carey Borkoski, educator, researcher, coach, mom, and author of Dancing with Discomfort. Each week, I'll share stories, practices, and reflections to help you build self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the stamina to stay grounded in the moments of uncertainty. Today, I want to talk about something I'm calling discomfort stamina. I haven't seen that phrase in many places. I've seen it in the context of athletics, endurance running, but not always together. They talk about discomfort, they talk about endurance and stamina, but not the two together. This idea is actually pretty central to my book, Dancing with Discomfort, and it came alive for me recently during a 10-mile race. I was in Annapolis, Maryland. They have their annual 10-mile race through downtown Annapolis over this beautiful bridge. And I hadn't actually specifically trained for the distance. I actually hadn't planned on running it. And then I had to make a trip to Maryland. I live in Massachusetts, and I thought, what the heck? I will do it. I've done it many years before. I love the race. It's just a beautiful, scenic route. And I thought, what the heck? I signed up anyway, reminding myself that my only goal was to enjoy the race and finish. No time, metrics, nothing else, just to enjoy the day. I was going to run anyway, so I may as well run with other people in a beautiful place. Early on in the race, I was feeling great, taking in the scenery, listening to the hum of all the runners around me. It's a huge race. And soaking in, the energy, the enthusiasm of the event itself. But as often happens, as the miles wore on, a little doubt started to creep in. What was I thinking? I hadn't specifically trained for this, and could I really finish this race? Had I made a mistake? My old habit in these moments of discomfort would be to drown out the struggle by cranking up the music in my headphones. I literally would try to ignore my inner critic, that self-doubt and that discomfort. I was trying to distract myself to avoid being in this moment, or preventing myself really from enjoying the beautiful scenery and the lovely morning. But this time I did something different. Maybe it's because I've been writing all summer about the essential pause. Maybe it's because I've been training and working hard to be a good coach for my clients. Maybe it's because this podcast has been on my mind. I don't know. I just decided to try something different. I still had music. I love music. I don't think I could leave the house and go for a run without something in my ears, whether it's a podcast or music. But I also let in the sounds of the day, the footsteps, the cheers, even the rhythm of my breathing, even when it was a little heavier than I had hoped. And when the discomfort grew, I practiced a pause, not by stopping, but by returning my attention to the present. So what does that mean? Maybe I was running up. There are a lot of hills in this course. And so I can think of a part of the race where you're a little over halfway. And so you're feeling like you're getting over that hump. And there's a downhill. And at the end of the downhill, there's literally a cone in the middle of the road, and it's a turnaround. So the thing about that downhill is that the uphill is coming soon. And so I got into that uphill. And what pausing looks like in that moment is not to stop. It's not to surrender to the hill, but it's to stay focused on the present. And so what I found myself doing is paying close attention to each stride I would take. I also often will set my eye on, mailboxes or phone poles or trees, and just pay attention, little spaces, little steps. Pausing, focus, concentration, attention. Then I pay attention to my breath, to what was happening right now, what was happening is rather than worrying about mile 8, 9, or 10, I was focused and attentive to the mile I was in. What I realized is that building stamina in discomfort isn't about pushing it away, gutting it out, or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about practicing the pause over and over again so you can stay grounded even when it feels hard. Now, there's this thing that someone shared with me called an ugly stage of our process, our experiences. What I just described in this 10-mile race, it's not always been the case for me, and I still have days and races that are a struggle. And someone that I was teaching once told me that when you're an artist, a painter, a runner, a dancer, a musician, singer, author, whatever it is that you love to do, that you need to expect an ugly phase. This is what a painting instructor, a watercolors instructor told her one day in a class. There will be a moment or a period of time when things you are doing, the drawing, the painting, the watercoloring, the dancing, the writing, it'll be ugly. It'll be a draft. It'll be messy. And it is critically important and necessary to just accept the moment and lean into it. That idea resonated so much with me. In my work as a professor, author, coach, and especially as a mom to 3 kids, I encounter ugly stages all of the time. Writing an article, a book, does not just turn out as an edited, polished, finished product. It is not a wave of a magic wand. It is not something that a small group of individuals just have a gift and they're able to produce these beautiful finished pieces. It's also not true that coaching is all sort of natural talent and that these techniques and abilities just happen. It takes work and practice. And this is certainly true if you're working with young people, whether you're a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a neighbor, a teacher, a Boy Scout leader, whatever that role is, there are always ugly stages. I've also found this to be the case in my running and working out. There are days, weeks, and races that have a lot of ugliness in them. But what I'm learning in this moment is that there's also growth. There's opportunity. There's learning and possibilities. Pausing in those moments helps us to lean into and use these experiences instead of immediately running away, ignoring them, or hoping, you close your eyes and close your ears and you just hope that eventually that discomfort will go away. Now, here's the thing about discomfort. It's a paradox. There's the stress, the discomfort, and sometimes the pain can also result in muscle growth. New information and learning may initially create confusion, but leads to clarity and understanding. Examples include emotional growth that comes out of uncomfortable situations, maybe difficult conversations, financial discipline and perceived scarcity. This idea that maybe you're learning to save or teaching your kids or students to save. Well, saving is withholding spending. So it feels hard and restrictive. And at the end, it supports growth and opportunity. Relationships and setting boundaries. We all need to set boundaries in our relationships, set expectations, clearly communicate. And this too creates discomfort. And it may lead to stronger and healthier relationships. It may also lead to healthier well-being for ourselves. There is so much paradox in discomfort. So what about this thing, discomfort stamina? Well, I haven't been able to find it in too many places, but you can find a lot of literature on stamina. I found a healthline.com article that defined stamina is the strength and energy that allows you to sustain physical or mental effort for long periods of time. It also says that having high stamina allows you to perform your daily activities at a high level while using less energy. I mean, I loved both of these points that the article makes. This idea that stamina helps you to manage, to endure, to take on, to sit with, really, to use sort of a coaching or pausing language, to sit with things that are hard. I'm not saying you should, endure discomfort for long periods of time. What I am suggesting is when you find yourself in a situation, whether it's a meeting with folks, a relationship, a conversation with a young person, on a run or doing something that you love, if you feel some discomfort bubble up, it's okay to sit in it for a little bit. Perhaps remember that paradox. It will lead to learning and opportunity. And the other piece that I really love is this idea that having this stamina, so having this discomfort stamina, actually helps you to perform using less energy. And I couldn't help but remember this idea of cognitive load. This idea that we know that when we're learning and growing, that other elements that appear, mostly emotions or discomfort, if we aren't able or haven't practiced managing these things that emerge in the midst of our learning, it creates undue cognitive load, which means it's harder to learn. It is really difficult to learn when you're feeling stressed, when you're having to focus your attention in managing what's going on with your inner critic, your voice of self-doubt. And so this discomfort stamina also creates some sense of efficiency, right, in terms of the experience that you're having, whether it's the learning, the painting, the running. Endurance athletes talk about discomfort as an opportunity for growth. They reframe it as potential. Enduring discomfort and building stamina, as I said earlier, it requires focus and attention. Discomfort disrupts a moment, experience, and an action. And so our ability to practice that pause, to find focus and presence, can support our ability to endure discomfort. So this idea that in that race, if we circle back to the 10-mile race, in years past, having that discomfort would have been really defeating for me. It probably would have slowed me down, and it exacerbates because what happens is that discomfort slows me down, which invites my inner critic telling me I can't do this, or I'm not going fast enough, whatever the words are. And it's just sort of a never-ending cycle. And what the pause does for me is it creates an additional disruption, which is hold on, time out. Let's refocus. Let's bring attention to what you are doing. You are climbing up this hill. You are running through this discomfort. You are running with this discomfort. Maybe that's even a better way to talk about it, right? Whether you're writing, parenting, biking, drawing, whatever artistry you do, walking or doing the thing with discomfort. Wow. What would that be like? What possibilities does that invite? So discomfort stamina. I've mentioned practice. I've mentioned the need for it, the importance of it, the role of it. And so I wanted to make sure that I also offered some tips, some ways, some strategies for building that discomfort. So the first thing to do in taking that pause, perhaps the pause is just simply acknowledging the discomfort. Recognize that feeling uncomfortable is going to happen. It is expected, and it's just part of growth, right? If we go physiologically, if you think about someone who is running or biking or lifting weights, building muscle, it hurts, it makes soreness, and it's helping to grow those muscles, right? So that's physiologically your biology that happens. It's also true in learning and growing. So if you do nothing else around this podcast topic this week, maybe just practice acknowledging, ooh, I'm feeling that again. I'm feeling it in my stomach, my shoulders, my teeth are clenching. I got a grimace on my face. I got a warm feeling because I'm worried and anxious, feeling a little bit warmer than usual. Just spend a little time noticing when the discomfort appears. You can also go back to the pause and think about your values. If you've had any chance to do your core values or thought about what your priorities are, really get grounded in those values. Having a clear understanding of what you want to achieve can help you stay motivated during tough times. So if you remember, I sort of made a pact with myself as I was signing up for the race that all I wanted to do was enjoy the day and finish the race. And so in those moments of discomfort, I remembered that and asked myself, what is the joy? What is the enjoyment that you're having in this moment? Or what is possible in terms of those values, that priority? And so again, just connecting it back to what's important to you about this thing or this process or this training and see if that helps. I think it's also important potentially to develop a flexible mindset, to embrace the belief that challenges and failures are opportunities. I do think this one can be harder. I think sometimes we mistake positivity. There's a researcher, I can't remember her name, but she talks a lot about toxic positivity. This isn't just saying, oh yeah, failures are opportunities for learning and growth. It's really believing it. It's embracing that in this experience of learning, there will be discomfort, setting that expectation that it is just part of the process, that there will be bumps and bruises and hurdles, and it's just there. Practice self-compassion. I talk a lot about inner critics, our judge, self-doubt, all those. There's so many of them. Perfectionism, pleaser, the list goes on and on, unfortunately. So what would it take to practice some self-compassion? What would it take to be kind to yourself during those difficult times? What would it take to be proud of yourself? Acknowledge your efforts and progress, no matter how small. Anybody who knows me, anybody who's been in one of my classes or has coached with me knows I love a good celebration. Getting yourself out of bed on a rough day, finding joy while things are so difficult in this world, small celebrations, being able to acknowledge your efforts and progress. Look, some of these goals we set for ourselves are very long in terms of time period, right? We're talking about a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years. And so what are you doing in those shorter time periods, in those smaller moments to celebrate your progress? It might be the tiniest of thing. It might be that you want to write a magazine article or a book, and today you wrote for 15 minutes. That is progress. So find some self-compassion, find some ways to celebrate, and ask yourself, what am I celebrating today? What am I celebrating in this moment? None of this work, even the pauses, can't be done alone. Seek support. Surround yourself with a supportive community. Make those connections. Find those relationships, those trusted others who will understand and encourage your growth journey. Seeking support is always a great way to hold yourself accountable, right? So if you decide this week that you're going to practice just acknowledging the discomfort, maybe you find someone who's willing to do it with you or to check in with you. Accountability. It's a great way to use trusted others, friends, colleagues. Other ways to increase stamina, exercise, right? Literally, if you want to be a biker, runner, rower, walker, whatever that is, increase the time that you exercise. The other piece of that around exercise that I think really resonates here is its practice. So taking this out of sort of a physical activity context, discomfort stamina requires a certain set of muscles. It's focus, it's concentration, it's shifting and reframing inner critics to your cheerleaders and celebrators and asking yourself what you're celebrating, not what's going wrong. That is a form of practice. Those are a set of muscles. And if you don't use those muscles, they atrophy, just like your body muscles do. So definitely practice and exercise. Music can be a great additional practice for discomfort, not to drown out the discomfort. Maybe sometimes it just helps to mitigate or temper it in a way that you can manage it. I mean, the thing about discomfort, and I want to be clear about this, if this is really new to you, we want to sort of do this gradually, do things that make you feel a little uncomfortable and see what you learn from those experiences. And then maybe increase the intensity of discomfort so that you can practice more. Music can be a helpful way to scaffold that practice, right? To give you some additional support as you experiment with ways to manage the discomfort, ways to acknowledge what it looks like to give yourself self-compassion in different gradations of discomfort. The other thing I will say, and I think we've alluded to it, or I've alluded to it, but not said the word, is meditation. Mindfulness and meditation, focus, practice, concentration, bringing attention, being present. That's all an element of meditation. And when I say meditation, I'm not asking you to start meditating for 30 minutes a day, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. And maybe you find that you really love it and you lengthen it. Again, we're talking about experimenting here and trying different things. Not everything's going to work. Nothing is going to work all the time. And it's having multiple options and strategies that work for you because you've practiced. I mean, think about the things you do in your life. I would suspect that the things that you feel like you're good at, it's because you've spent some time practicing. You have different techniques and ways of doing the things that you do. And it's the same for discomfort. We have to develop strategies. We have to have expectations that it's going to come up at some point, and we want to be prepared. And so what does that look like? Is it music? Is it meditation? Is it a practice of self-compassion? Is it acknowledgement? Is it somebody else, an accountability partner that helps? Maybe it's a combination of several of those things, or maybe it's something I haven't mentioned. Maybe you have an idea of how you can help yourself manage discomfort. The point of this is it takes practice. It takes work. You're not just going to wake up one morning and voila, be able to handle discomfort. So discomfort stamina is less about gritting your teeth and more about building presence. In work, leadership, and life, discomfort shows up everywhere. In difficult conversations, in trying something new, and in waiting for an uncertain outcome. We often distract ourselves to avoid the unease. We've all been there, right? Scrolling our phones, filling the silence with noise, or speeding up, rushing through just to get it over. But when we practice pausing in the middle of discomfort, we begin to train ourselves to stay. We learn that discomfort won't undo us, that sometimes it's the very place we need to be, the very place where growth can happen. So this week, for our essential practice, I invite you to notice one moment of discomfort, to acknowledge that discomfort. A tough meeting, an awkward silence, a challenging workout. Instead of rushing past it or distracting yourself, try pausing. Take a breath, feel your feet on the floor, and name what you're experiencing. You don't have to solve it or escape it. Just practice acknowledging it and staying, even for just a moment. That's how discomfort stamina grows, one pause at a time. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me in the pause today. I hope these reflections and practices help you find moments of presence in your own life. If you'd like to keep exploring, you can find more stories and resources on my Substack, Essential Pause. Until next time, take a breath, notice the moment, and remember, the pause is always available to you. Thanks again, and see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed what you just heard, we have a whole universe of podcasts waiting for you. Simply search Dragon Podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can also explore our full lineup and discover new shows at podbean.com/dragonpodcasts. That's podbean.com/dragonpodcasts.